What Hogwarts Legacy does right is that it really lets you go wild with the spell combo variations and still feel very strong with many of them. That's why today I want to rank the best ones in the entire game. The rules are pretty simple and we'll judge them by the damage, group wipe capabilities, and if enemies can resist them or not. But before we move on with the video, a quick word from today's sponsor, Alienware. Play anywhere, anytime with the X15 and X14 gaming laptops, which feature the perfect synergy between high-quality gaming and amazing design. These high-performance machines will give you the best experience across your favorite games and apps, thanks to the latest NVIDIA RTX graphics cards and up to 14-core Intel 12th Gen CPUs inside. The X15 features a highly responsive, fully RGB keyboard with a short key travel distance to optimize your play. It's also incredibly easy to use it to quickly switch between different power modes so that you can really crank those graphics limits to the max. But if you prefer extra mobility and advanced cooling tech, then Alienware's X14 gaming laptops are here to provide, thanks to their unique design, while also giving you plenty of juice to power through any game. So totally check out Alienware's gaming laptop range by following the links down below, and I'll give another huge thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Of course, early on there's quite a few combos that you can make, but one really worth mentioning is the stun plus Glacius plus any of the damage spells. Making sure to stun an enemy first already gives you a huge damage multiplier, which is why I like so much using Flipendo against many of the enemies. Glacius and Defendo was already a strong option, but if you do it during an enemy stun, you get a significantly higher damage boost from it to the point you can one-shot most enemies in the endgame. Since the setup focuses on different spells in different situations, I recommended the concentration perk to buff all of the damage spells. Yes, you lose a bit compared to the more specialized ones like the Laceration, but the difference isn't as big as it seems, and having an all-arounder build leaves room for a lot more versatility. The only downside is that Defendo has an odd enemy interaction, especially when they happen to be on the ground. Sometimes it even completely misses them. Plus, its setup isn't particularly too great against more than 2 enemies, which is why in this case you can totally switch it with a Bombarda, assuming that you also went with its mastery upgrade. Now, one of my favorite, a bit more odd interactions is Transformation plus Descendo, which requires actually a minimal investment to become almost one-shot capable. So you only need to get the mastery for Transformation, which happens at around level 22, but you can pretty much one-shot targets with it. Normally, the default barrel form from it doesn't do too much damage, but the upgraded version to the explosive one means you can now one-shot the primary target. And Descendo is perfect to couple with it because it makes it land right where the enemy previously was. So you can do some extra AoE damage to nearby enemies too, sometimes one-shotting them as well. Even more so if you actually couple it with the Descendo mastery that deals some extra AoE damage at the point of impact. The limiting factor for this, however, is the fact that it doesn't work on anything other than normal-sized enemies. So for example, any of the larger human enemies like the executioners, larger spiders, and especially the troll enemies are going to be completely immune to this, which kinda makes it completely pointless against them. Now, coming up to the 5th spot, we long talked about the power of using enemy attacks against one another, and one combo that does that very well is Arrest the Momentum plus Expelliarmus. This is such a versatile combo that it lets you punish enemies in all sorts of different ways. For example, if you cast Arrest the Momentum on an Executioner enemy, this also slows down their attack animation to a fraction of what it is, giving you an even bigger window to turn their own attacks against them with Expelliarmus. Early on, that means deleting huge chunks of their HP, while later game it can almost completely one-shot them. But turning their AoE attacks against their other teammates is even better, as Arrest the Momentum will prolong the duration of their fire tornadoes and electric attacks. This gives you a lot of time to drag other enemies inside of them and oftentimes one-shot them with these very spells. It's as terrifying as it looks cool, so it totally deserves extra points just for that. The only downside is that this is kind of going to fit a very specific scenario, mostly aimed against human enemies, but otherwise for its intended effect, it's definitely A tier. But we're getting closer to the podium, and at number 4 we know that stealth was pretty broken ever since we played the early access beta, but it's not because of the enemy's hard time detecting you, it's actually because of the follow-up attack you can do with Petrificus Totalis, which by the way deserves a spot on its own in the top strongest spells in Hogwarts Legacy. There's actually at least a couple of ways in which you can use this, with the first one being coupled with the Disillusionment Stealth mode, as you get access to this quite early on. Once combined with the Mastery upgrade, this makes it entirely possible to one-shot entire groups of enemies, as now Petrificus Totalis has a massive AoE effect. The kicker is that nobody is safe from it, as it works on literally all enemies as long as you remain hidden. That's why further combining this with an invisibility potion is even more powerful, as now you can do the same attack but also while in combat and when enemies have already been alerted. We talked about combining this with the binding trait to stack insane amounts of damage for the Petrificus Totalis, which results in easily one-shotting anything even on the highest difficulty. And since invisibility takes down even enemy shields right away, this can also be combined with other spellcasts, so you don't have to care about the color of the shields. But its versatility goes beyond that because it works just as well with Imperio too, which is how you end up with one of the most OP interactions in the entire game. While it is true that it only works when there's no other enemies left except for one, it doesn't stop it from trivializing even the enemies that you normally need a better gear to defeat. Trolls especially are such easy targets against Imperio and Petrificus Totalis, since they tend to be alone most of the time or rarely surrounded by enemies. The only disadvantage to this setup is that just one extra enemy will completely prevent Petrificus Totalis from working with Imperio, even if both remaining targets are under the effect of the Imperio spell. But it's time we talk about the top 3 spell combo builds, because these have almost no weaknesses and check the list on almost everything. Starting with the 3rd spot, these are going to go to the plant-based builds, and I'm surprised that Avalanche was able to make almost all of these incredibly good, especially the mandrakes and the chomping cabbages. Their biggest downside, of course, is the fact that they require quite a bit of investment to make them work, including having good gear and stacking a lot of traits to maximize the damage. Plus, since they are consumables, you have to constantly create new ones for the ones that you just lost. Luckily, that shouldn't be a problem in the endgame, and for both mandrakes and the Chinese cabbages, we saw a massive increase in damage when stacking the general herbology traits rank 3 instead of going for the specific plant damage ones. This resulted in an almost double increase in damage with the herbology trait for all of the plants, not just the specific ones, making it the perfect setup for any plant-based build. Mandrakes have by far the biggest advantage here, since the AoE range that they cover is simply huge, plus the damage is still quite high. You get about 5 or 6 sticks, each 600 damage plus, and during its entire duration, no enemy will actually get close to you, as they are too busy to be stunned. The chomping cabbages, on the other hand, have much less AoE potential, but this comes with a much higher damage increase, almost to 6k per bite on normal sized enemies. The Mastery upgrade lets you even cast 1 extra per throw in a total of 6 cabbages at any given time, which will more than make up for the lack of area of effect damage, as now this is going to quickly move from one enemy to another, pretty much one-shotting everything or taking just a few bites even for the bigger enemies. Since they both achieve very high damage with just slightly favoring either AoE or single target damage for each, they both deserve getting the 3rd spot on the list and being there at the same time. But coming up to number 2 comes a build that I'm not even sure works as intended, and this is Transformation plus the Blood Curse. This is going to completely eliminate and one-shot entire groups of enemies with very minimal downsides. I'm still not fully convinced if this is intended or not, but this achieves almost the same level of insanity as the Killing Curse build, except you can get it much earlier and you have a significantly better cooldown. That's mostly because of the very weird interaction between Transformation Mastery and the Blood Curse, where a target that was previously transformed into an explosive barrel is considered to get, I guess, infinite amounts of damage when it explodes, which technically transfers enough to other cursed targets to one-shot basically anything regardless of difficulty. And the problem is that it doesn't even have a downside, as it works on literally everyone as long as you have at least one normal sized enemy around to primarily use transformation against. This would normally be on the first spot even if it didn't seem so unintended, which is why it puts it at the risk of eventually getting fixed. That is why it only places at the second spot right now. Which is why the number 1 spot can only go to the evil killing curse build, assuming of course that you accepted going with that path during Sebastian's side story. If you did not and you chose a specific ending for it, you can still kinda get them back. You can just check the video that I made a couple of days back on how you can do that. That being said, the combo between Avada Kedavra, Crucio and the Blood Curse is fully intended and sounds just as powerful as it looks. There's a certain satisfaction when your character utters those words that no other spell in game makes you feel like. Crucio's mastery with the Blood Curse is already great at linking up the damage on multiple enemies quickly and reliably, but Avada Kedavra jumping to all linked targets at the same time just brings it all together in an amazing visual spectacle. The only possible downside is that it doesn't work on undead or magic creatures, plus the longer cooldown on the curse prevents it from being truly spammable. But you can more than make up for that with a focus potion. In fact, spells that can be triggered on and off, such as Lumos or the invisibility charm, can both prolong the potion duration if you get its mastery upgrade. That, coupled with the fact that it has absolutely no reliance on gear or upgrades and its lore significance, definitely makes it deserving of the number 1 spot in the most powerful setups in Hogwarts Legacy. Totally let me know down below if there's any other setups that you found and liked in the game. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video.